Peace and power. It's your boy Maitreya Asek, also known as Shane the Artist, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of the Rebellious Rhymer Podcast. That's right, family. Black conservatism without the buck dancing. Yo, we about to dig in deep today. We about to go deep today, man. You know what I'm saying? We about to get into these broken trees. We are about to get into the meat and potatoes of the situation. There's been an ongoing dispute on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Are Black Americans, are FBA, ADOS, whatever you want to call us, are African Americans indigenous to these lands, to the lands of North America? Are we indigenous to this land, family? Or are we all came on the slave ships from Africa, from the Ivory Coast, or from somewhere in West Africa? Did we all come off of the boats to Africa, to Americas, or were some of our people already indigenous to this land? You know, and if you have an opinion, or you have some facts, or you want to share some scholarship, don't be afraid to chime in. You can chime in on TikTok and on Instagram. You can call in, you can request to join, and I will let you on, family. If you have something to say about this, do you have an opinion, or do you have some scholarship or some knowledge, some receipts on whether the fact Black Americans are indigenous to the Americas or not? If you do, don't be afraid to call in, family, because this is a dialogue. Okay? But I call this episode of the Rebellious Rhymer Podcast Wabos Strike Back, or When Wabos Strike Back. And what is a wabo? You might want to know. Apparently that is some type of derogatory word that the so-called Native Americans, I call them the pale-skinned Native Americans, but the pale-skinned so-called Native Americans. So they use this term wabo as a derogatory term towards Black people, and particularly Black Americans, who acknowledge their indigenous lineage to the land of North America. There might be an acronym to it or something, wabo. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that it's a derogatory word that the so-called pale-skinned Native Americans call Black Americans who acknowledge their ancestral lineage here on this land. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging our ancestral lineage here on this land. You understand what I'm saying? Because we have ancestral lineage here on this land. And calling us wabos and all of that stuff is not going to make that go away, family. It's not going to make that go away. So the argument is that Black Americans, FBA, that we listening to our crazy grandmas and our crazy great grandmas, and they telling us these stories, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they think that they know something, but they don't. They pretty much make it seem like they really insult our ancestors. They really insult our family, and to make it seem like all of our ancestors, all of our Black American grandmas, our Black American grandpas, our FBA great grandmas, our FBA great grandpas, all the stories that they've been telling us, not just me, family, I'm talking about stories that's been passed down from generation to generation to generations of FBAs all over this country, telling the same story, that we have some type of Native American indigenous lineage. Some people say, well, we have Cherokee in our family. Some people say, well, we have Choctaw in our family. Some people say we have Seminole in our family. I'm going to break down the lineage of what my grandma's sister told me, okay? And, she was a very smart lady, all right? She worked for many, many years in the D.C. Archives, okay? In the Washington, D.C. archives. So she had information, and she had access to all of this information. So this is what my grandma's sister, she's with the ancestors now. May she rest in peace. But she broke down this story to me like this. Okay, first of all, let me rewind that. It started off. I was 11th grade in high school. Okay, we for a class project we had watched the movie Roots. Right, we watched the whole series. We've been watching it all week. All right, so for that weekend, our class assignment was to go home, talk to people, talk to the oldest members of our family, and find out about our own lineage, find out about our own heritage. Go and dig up your own roots, as you will. Bring it back to school tomorrow, and we'll grade you on that paper. So that was the assignment, right? So who's the oldest person in my family? Well, the only person that I can think of at that time, I was thinking about my grandma. So I called up my grandma. May she rest in peace as well. She's transitioned with the ancestors as well. And she was a beautiful woman, a beautiful individual. I miss her a lot. But my grandmother, she said, well, I don't really know a lot about our past, but I can direct you to my sister. And this is her older sister. So I said, okay, that sounds good. So her older sister, she lived in Baltimore, so all of her family is in Baltimore. Shout out to B More. And I'm not sure what to call that, grand aunt or what, but that's auntie. That's my grandma's older sister. So she proceeded to tell me that she worked for the Washington, D.C. archives for many, many years. So she would proceed to tell me that our story started off with a man named John R. Buckler, okay? Now, it's not very clear as to where exactly John R. Buckler come from. Some say that he derived from a slave ship from the Ivory Coast in the 1800s. But that part of the story is not very clear yet. But I am doing more research on this. But what I do know is that John R. Buckler was born, what she told me was Tuck, Virginia, I believe. Now I tried looking that up, I couldn't find it at the moment, but I will continue doing more research. Maybe I misheard her, or maybe I didn't hear exactly what she said, but it sounded like Tuck, Virginia. I will do more research on that. But the story that she told me is that this man, John R. Buckler, that he escaped from the plantation in Virginia. He ran away, okay? And during his travels while he ran away, he met a young woman, and she was so-called a Native American, right? And this Native American, she was of the Blackfoot tribe. So this is what my aunt tells me. My aunt tells me that this man, John R. Buckler, who's my great times 5 times 6 or 7 grandfather, I really haven't figured all the timeline out yet. But he's my ancestor, okay? So he met this indigenous Native American woman. So from there, he started hanging out with this Native American woman who was supposedly from the Blackfoot tribe. They got together. They clicked really well. They ended up getting married. Not only did they end up getting married, according to the story that my aunt told me, they ended up getting recaptured. So the Native American woman from the Blackfoot tribe, she was captured along with her husband, and they were both put back into slavery. And this is the story that my grandmother's sister told me. So they were both put back into slavery. They abused his wife from the Blackfoot tribe. Supposedly they whipped her with a thick thorn branch hit her all over her body with thorns, with a thorn branch, and the thorn got caught in her neck. Okay, so this is the story that I've been told, and then they would once again escape together, I believe. So, the story is kind of fuzzy, but that's kind of a synopsis of the beginnings of my family lineage, right? So I'm saying this to make a point. The point is that on both sides of my family, supposedly on my mother's side and my father's side, there is stories of indigenous lineage, of Native American lineage. Okay? And this is how I see it. There's no way in hell, family, that all of our family members are lying to us, or that they're just making stuff up, or they're just ashamed to be black, or ashamed to be African, or whatever it is. These stories have been passed down from generation to generation. So how dysfunctional are we as a people to dismiss our ancestors and our older generation in our family? How sick are we to dismiss that, family? Who are we to dismiss that and say, oh, that they don't know what they were talking about? Who are we to dismiss that? I'm not. Okay, now I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it when I was younger, but I am now, because there's something behind that. There's a reason why each and every one of our family members, as foundational Black Americans, have the same story, that we have some type of Indian in our family. That was a saying that we had when we were kids. Oh, you got good hair. You must got Indian in your family. It took off as a joke in the Black community and stuff like that. But I think that there's something to that. There's something to it. And I think that there's a lot more to it than what we think. So let's go ahead and start breaking this down, man. They say that Black Americans are not indigenous. You got Pan-Africans and you got the pale-skinned, quote-unquote, Native Americans who say that Black Americans are not indigenous to this land. We came from Africa. We need to be proud that we're African, even though we have no connections to Africa. I say this all the time. I cannot pick up a phone and call an auntie in Africa. I cannot pick up a phone and call an uncle in Nigeria. I cannot pick up a phone and call a cousin in Ghana. I can't do it. Okay? I cannot do it. I have no connections to Africa. This is not an anti-African speech. I'm not anti-African. I love Africa. I've said this before. I've been to Africa before. I plan on going back many, many, many times over. Before I die, to kick my bucket list, I want to visit every single country on that continent. I do. Okay? So this is not about African hate and all of that stuff. You're going to have people out there who try to frame it as such, but trust me, that's not what this is. Most FBAs are very well versed. We're very well traveled. We done been out the country. We do our research. We study. We do our due diligence. So don't believe the stories about the FBA or just a hate group, an anti-African hate group, and all of that stuff. Don't believe those stories are false. Okay? So now, first things first, we are going to talk about the Black Native Americans of the 1800s and the treaties that was broken. Okay? That the red natives were supposed to share these resources with the Black natives of their own particular tribe. Okay, so in the year 1866, there were 5 tribes, okay? They were known as the 5 civilized tribes, okay? These 5 civilized tribes worked some kind of a deal out with the U.S. government and say, okay, look, we'll give up this land and we'll go to these reservations and we'll live our life on these reservations as long as we get some type of income, some type of reparations, some type of set-asides, some type of goodies. It came with stipulations, and it came with goodies, basically. It came with incentives to move themselves to these reservations. Okay, and when we're talking about these 5 tribes, the 5 tribes are Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Seminole tribe, the Cherokee tribe, and the Muskogee tribe. Okay, these are the 5 civilized tribes, and supposedly these 5 civilized tribes had slaves, and these slaves were also considered members of those particular tribes at that particular point in time. But, and I put emphasis on that, but not all black Americans were slaves during that time. You had what you call freedmen roaming around on this land, free. Not everybody were slaves. As a matter of fact, the slave ships that came and delivered people to the Western Hemisphere, only about 3% of those slaves landed in the United States of America. The majority of those people were either taken to South America or they were taken to the Caribbean. You only have about 3% of those African slave ships that made their stop to Virginia, Jamestown, Virginia, those parts of Virginia. So those are the 5 civilized tribes, and they negotiated some treaties with the United States government in 1866. Okay, now these treaties were meant to be in these treaties. There were stipulations as far as what to do with the black Native tribes members. Okay, so for Native Americans today, so-called pale-skinned Native Americans of today, for them to tell black people that we're not indigenous, our ancestors were not Native Americans, we're crazy, we don't know what we're talking about. Why in the treaties does it says that these Native American groups need to break bread, so to speak, with the black Native tribes members? All of these tribes had black members. They all had black members. Some were slaves. All of them weren't slaves. Some of them were not slaves. Some of them were just members of these tribes. The black members helped these tribes in certain wars. There were black people in these tribes, family. It says it right there in the treaties. So that crushes the idea that black people in America don't have any type of native kinship or any type of native connection, any type of Native American lineage. That kills that argument right there. It says it right there in your treaties in 1866. There were black people in these tribes. These black people were supposed to enjoy the same benefits that the so-called pure blood Native people receive. They were supposed to get some of the same monies that these so-called pure blood Native Americans receive. They were supposed to get some access to these casinos, to the land, to whatever set-asides and giveaways that the government was issuing out to the Native Americans, and particularly those 5 civilized tribes. Those 5 tribes are the ones who are, quote unquote, federally recognized, right? Those tribes were supposed to share those benefits with the black tribesmen. What did they do? Instead of sharing with their black tribes members, family, we're going to break this down today. We're going to slow roast this. We're going to take our time. We're going to take our time. We're going to take our time. Damo, Beat Killer, my nephew, what's going on, family? You know what I'm saying? What's going on over here, TikTok? What the deal is, everybody? Y'all can hit me up in the comments. Please don't forget to send those hearts, send those likes, send those gifts. Hell, send the galaxy if you like the information that I'm dropping to you. Send me a galaxy in the chat. We're going to take our time with this. We're going to slow roast this. So this is what I want to do right now. So we talked about the treaties of 1866, right? I want to get into the specifics of those treaties. Can we do that? Can we do that? I want to get into the specific of those treaties. But before I do that, smash that like button, smash that share button, hit that subscribe button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Rebellious Rhymer Podcast. And let's get started. Let me get 10 likes. Let me get 10 likes before we jump into this, the specifics of these treaties that was written by the U.S. government and these so-called 5 civilized tribes. Okay, let's get into some specifics. All right, we're going to get into some specifics. Okay, so the Cherokee Treaty. Okay, yeah, I'm going to break each one of them down. The Cherokee Treaty, that was written in July 19th, 1866. And it goes on to say, this treaty that treaty specifically, Article 9, provided that all freedmen, now the black tribes members were called freedmen at that time. They were called freedmen. Okay, so these black freedmen and all free black people that were members of those tribes of the Cherokee Nation and their descendants shall have all the rights of native Cherokee rights and citizenship and equal interest in the national funding of the land. So they were supposed to be breaking off land to the black natives. They were supposed to be breaking off monies and whatever federal set-asides that was put away for them. We were supposed to, the black indigenous natives were supposed to receive some of that as well, family. But that treaty was broken. Now, supposedly, there's been some lawsuits to all of these tribes, to all of these 5 civilized tribes that black people had filed lawsuits, and some of them are gaining their native status back and gaining their native citizenship back. But these pale-skinned Native Americans that call us wabos, they'll never tell you that. They're not going to tell you that. They never touch on these treaties. They never touched on the fact that black people were members of these tribes, and the treaties that was written meant for them to share the resources with the black tribes members were broken. Okay? Not only were the treaties broken, but later these black tribe members were later kicked out of their tribe. They were kicked out of their own tribes. And that's something else that these pale-skinned Native Americans do not talk about. Or should I say, I don't even call them Native Americans. I call them Siberians, because that's where they are from. They are Siberians. Okay? So these pale-skinned Siberians who are insulting our ancestors and saying that they're crazy and they don't know what they're talking about, and everybody is lying in our family, everybody's lying about their native background. They kicked the black members out of the tribes, family. So anyways, that was pretty much the Cherokee Nation Treaty of July 19th, 1866. Okay, now let's talk about the Treaty of the Creek Indians. The treaty with the Creek Nation was written in June 14th, 1866. Okay, Article 2 in that treaty of the Creek Nation granted all freedmen and their descendants all the rights and privileges of native citizens, including equal interest in the soil and national funds. So again, they were supposed to share some of that land, family. Some of those, we're supposed to have reservations as well. Okay? We're supposed to have federal funding as well. We're supposed to have, a piece of those casinos and all that other stuff. We're supposed to be a part of that as well. But we were not, because we were kicked out of those tribes. Not only were we kicked out of those tribes, but we were declassified as Native Americans. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Okay? But let's talk about the Seminole Nation. The Seminole Treaty from the Seminole Nation that was written March 21st, 1866. Article 2 stipulated that the freedmen and their descendants shall have and enjoy all the rights of native citizens. That's right there in the treaty, family. You can look it up. You can look up the Seminole Nation Treaty, March 21st, 1866. Google it. Look it up. These groups, these tribes had black members of their tribes. Not only that, but you had full-on black tribes who were never captured into slavery. You had black tribes. I'm just talking about the black members of these 5 so-called civilized tribes. You hear what I'm saying? Of these 5 civilized tribes. Oh, we not done. We gonna keep slow roasting this thing. We are not done. Let's talk about the treaties of the Choctaw and the Chickasaw. Okay, family, let's talk about the treaties of the Choctaw and the Chickasaw nations, written April 28th, 1866. These treaties were written back to back to back, negotiating with the government to get handouts, to get things, to get land, to get money, to get things like that. So let's go ahead and break that down. The Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, who wrote their treaty April 28th, 1866. This treaty was slightly different because it gave the Choctaw and it gave the Chickasaw the option to adopt the freedmen. See, that's the difference between the Choctaw, Chickasaw treaties and all the other treaties. It gave the tribes, the tribal chiefs, the option to adopt their black counterparts. So it gave the Choctaw and the Chickasaw options to adopt the freedmen, in which case they would receive a payment from the U.S. government. The Choctaw later adopted the freedmen, but the Chickasaw did not. Okay, so the Choctaw, they adopted the black freedmen tribe members in their group. The Chickasaw did not. Okay, the Chickasaw did not. So that's just a little bit of specifics on those treaties. You get what I'm saying? But the point that I'm making is those treaties exist. You can look them up. Don't let nobody tell you that your grandma was crazy, your great grandma didn't know what she was talking about, and you have no native, indigenous lineage or history. It's a lie. Okay? Because right there in those treaties, it says that they were supposed to be breaking you off something, family. Them Native Americans were supposed to be breaking you off something. I'm sorry, those Native Siberians were supposed to be breaking you off, man. Okay? And let's talk about the tribes kicking their black members out. Yeah, family. Yeah, the black members got kicked out of their tribes. The black members got kicked out of their tribes. Okay? And let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. The Choctaw. The Choctaw expelled their freedmen population around 1983. So these are pretty fairly recent of these black tribe members getting kicked out of their tribes. Okay, but the Choctaw, they expelled the black members in 1983. Okay, what about the Muskogee tribe? What about them up there in Oklahoma? The Muskogee tribe expelled their freedmen population in 1979, a year after I was born, family. So I was already taking my first couple of breaths during this time. Okay, when the Muskogee was kicking out their black members, I was already on this planet, chilling, breathing, living life. You know what I'm saying? All of that. The Cherokee expelled 2,800 freedmen descendants in 2007. So I'm going to repeat that again. The Cherokees expelled 2,800 freedmen descendants in 2007. If black people have no indigenous lineage and we were not members of these tribes, then why in the hell are they kicking us out of the tribes in the first place? How are we even members to be kicked out of something if we're not a member of that tribe, if we're not members of these tribes? Okay? The Seminole imposed a racially restricted rules around 2000. And, with these new rules that the Seminole kicked in, that allowed them to go on ahead and expel the black population out of their tribe. So that's how that happened, in the beginning of the 20th century. That went ahead. They expelled about 2,000 black members of their tribe. So we ain't talking about just a little handful of people here, man. We're talking about thousands and thousands of black Native Americans, indigenous to this land, expelled and kicked out of their own tribes, family, because they didn't want to share those resources. They didn't want to share those resources. They would rather have the white folks cosplay and integrate into their tribes, further whitening their skin tones and stuff like that. But that's a whole nother thing. We're going to get into that a little bit later too. All right? We're going to get into that a little bit later too. Did we acknowledge that we have been called things like wabos? We've been called things like pretendians. We've been called all of these different things, but nobody can deny the fact that we were members of these 5 civilized tribes. And that's just those federally recognized tribes. That's why I'm focusing on those, because those tribes were federally recognized. Let's move on to something else. Let's talk about the Maroon and Seminole Wars, okay? Now, these Maroon and Seminole Wars, first of all, family, how y'all feeling out there, man? Is everybody keeping up with me? Y'all keeping up and, everything is cool? Don't forget to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. If you can, send your boy a heart, send the galaxy. Let me know if you like these type of lives, and I promise you I will do more lives and stuff like that. But yeah, we're going to talk about these Maroon wars, these Maroons. A Maroon is basically an escaped slave who escaped the hardships of slavery and made their way to, typically a lot of them lived in swampy areas with rough terrains, a lot of dangerous areas where, they were less likely to be accosted or chased after because they escaped to these rough marsh-like terrains. Okay, so those are Maroons. The Maroons went to war. They had 3 different wars, and it spanned for decades, family. They were putting the foot to the ass of the colonial powers. They didn't teach us that in school. In school, they just taught us that we were all just docile slaves. And it seemed like some of these Pan-Africans and some of these native Siberians, that's kind of what they want us to stick with. They just want us to think that we were just slaves and we have no greatness in our history, that we have no history at all. We didn't accomplish anything. We didn't do anything. They would like for us to believe that. Yeah, they would like for us to believe that, but that's not the case. I promise you that's not the case. I promise you that we are the greatest people who walk the face of this planet Earth. I promise you that we are the first group of people to walk on this planet Earth. I promise you that we are the oldest group of human beings to inhabit the whole planet Earth. Any landmass on this planet that's inhabitable, black people been there first. Black people been there first. Even Europe. You have indigenous black people in Europe. You have the little Twa people. Their evidence is all up through Europe before the so-called migration of the pale skin. I don't want to get into the whole story of Yakub separating the brown germ from the black germ and then separating the brown germs from the white germs and creating, that's a whole nother story, and them being expelled from Africa and marching all the way to the Caucasus Mountains in the caves and forced to live their life in exile in the caves. But I'm not going to get into that right now. That's not what we're talking about right now, family. We might get into that in another broadcast. We'll get into that in another broadcast. Okay? We're going to get into that in another broadcast. But so the Maroon Wars were escaped slaves who took refuge in the Great Dismal Swamps. Okay? The Great Dismal Swamps, if you don't know, it's like a swampy, marshy type of area right there on the border of Virginia and North Carolina. Okay? Which is very special to me because that's where my lineage begins. Okay, my family is from Danville, Virginia. My mom is from Danville, Virginia. My grandma, my grandfather, we all are from Danville, Virginia, which is right there on the border of Greensboro, North Carolina. Okay, so it's a possibility, family. It's a possibility that some of this maroon blood might flows deep within my veins. As a matter of fact, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does because I got too much family in North Carolina and Virginia for it not to be. Now, I'm just going to keep it at that. It's a decades-long war that does Seminole Wars, and it lasted from the 17th century all the way into the end of slavery, 1865, all the way up to the Emancipation Proclamation. As a matter of fact, people say that that was part of the reason why slavery ended, because they like, God damn, these Negroes is kicking our ass. Let's go ahead and free them and give them, make some treaties with them and pay them to take their ass up to Oklahoma somewhere and start a new life. Get the hell out of Florida because that was where the killing fields were. You had people who were being slaughtered, like General Dade, for instance. They named Dade County after General Dade. General Dade was just mollywopped by the Black Maroons, okay? They did him bad. And they used weapons similar to what's behind me, something like these hatchets back here. Those aren't real hatchets, by the way. They're pipes that were made in hatchets. We got them from a reservation. But, yeah, they're not real hatchets. They're actually, if you look at the other side of them, they're pipes, you know. But I hang them on my wall because I think they're really cool, okay? But, yeah, so, again, we're talking about these Maroon Wars, right? And how these Black Maroons, these were natives, okay? These people were natives. We're talking about how these Black Maroons survived in this harsh swamp-like terrain. Where did these people go? Okay? These are native people. So does that history not exist too? Because we wabos and we just making up these stories, and we have no indigenous ancestry, and we were just slaves that came off of a slave ship, and that's it. So does this maroon history even exist then? That's just a question. That's just a question. That's just a question. Where are these people at? Where are these people who fought in these Maroon Wars? Where are these people? These people were native Black Americans. I will repeat that again. These people were native Black Americans who fought against colonization and colonialism. Okay? So it behooves me when I see pale-skinned Siberians telling us that this is not our history and we need to move on and we need to be proud of our history in Africa. We're not disowning Africa. We're not disclaiming Africa. At least I'm not. Okay? Like I said, I love Africa. And I acknowledge the history in Africa. I study those tombs and I study those pyramids in Kemet like nobody's business. Okay? I study those tombs and those pyramids. So you cannot tell me that I hate a certain continent, especially a continent full of people that look like me. It's bullshit. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the lies. FBA are not an anti-African group. Okay? We are just simply acknowledging our indigenous background on this landmass. Okay? Let's get back on those 5 civilized tribes, family. Have you seen the chiefs of today of these 5 civilized tribes? Here's a picture of them. If you notice, family, These are pale-skinned Siberians. None of them are dark-skinned. What happened to the dark-skinned Indians? What happened to the melanated native Indians? What happened to the red-skinned, the black native Indians? Where did they go? Where did these people come from? How did they get so damn light skin? How did they get so pale skin? You mean the pale skin is going to tell me and my great grandmother that our lineage is not what it is and that we're wrong and that she's crazy and she don't know what she's talking about? You're going to insult my ancestors like that? And you damn near halfway white up in this motherfucker? And you're going to try to tell me that I'm not indigenous to this land? Get out of here. Get out of here. Man. Get out of here. I don't want, if you are a pale-skinned Siberian, I don't want to hear nothing that you have to say about black people, black Americans not having no indigenous background in this land. And the shameful part about it is you have these scam Africans out here helping these white-skinned Native Americans and these pale-skinned Native chiefs erase the black American history in this country. They're actively trying to help them. These scam Africans are actively trying to help these pale-skinned Native Americans erase our history in this land, and FBA is not going to stand for it. We are not going to stand for it. That's outrageous. We will not stand for it. We're going to continue to hit you in the head with truth. We're going to continue to hit you in the head with receipts. We're going to continue to hit you in the head with these bars, man. We're going to continue to hit you in the head with these bars. Okay? And there's nothing that you can do about it. The bones done came out the damn closet, family. You see what I'm saying? No longer are we listening to these lies told to us, taught to us at our schools. Christopher Columbus was the first person to discover America and all of this stuff. That's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. We know that he had black navigators with him who were Moors, black Spanish-speaking Moors, traveled with Christopher Columbus to what's known today as the United States. Not only that, but there's treaties between the Moorish nation and the United States. You have Moors already here. You have Moors that already built colonies and that were already settled here in the United States as well. You want to try to deny that too? You want to try to deny that there were Moorish Americans already here? You want to try to deny all the black presidents that were presidents of this landmass before Barack Obama was even born? Way before Barack Obama was a gleam in his Kenyan daddy's eye. We had black presidents here already. Okay? We already had black presidents. So don't believe the hype. You got pale-skinned Native Americans and these pale-skinned chiefs of these 5 civilized tribes who actively kicked out their black members, and they want us to just forget that any of this history ever happened. They want us to forget that any of this history ever happened, okay? I'm saying peace and power to everybody who's joining my lives. Let me stop and give a quick shout out. I got some peoples here in my live. I want to give a shout out to Boss Lady. I appreciate you joining me. Teresa N. I appreciate you joining me as well. Gabby, peace and power to you, Gabby. I hope that you guys can get down with what I'm talking about here. And, and hopefully I'll do some more lives like this in the near future. But once again, y'all have tuned in to the Rebellious Rhymer Podcast. Black conservatism without the butt dancing. Excuse me, family. Sometimes I get a little slip of the tongue. Won't y'all go ahead and smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this live, family. Share this live on your social media. Share this live on your Instagram. Share this live on your Twitter. Share this live on your Facebook pages. Share this live on your TikTok. Share, share, share. Don't forget to send your hearts and to make your comments in my comment section, family. Make your comments in the comment section. How much longer do you think we're going to let pale-skinned Siberians disrespect our ancestors? We're not disrespecting the pale-skinned Siberians' ancestors. We're not disrespecting their lineage. All we're doing is saying, hey, we were a part of that. We were a part of that lineage. Not only that, we had our own native tribes before these tribes even stepped foot on this land from Siberia. And yes, y'all are from Siberia. Okay? I don't understand. And if you want to say, okay, well, if we're from Siberia in that case, then y'all are from Africa. Nobody's denying that. But do you understand what the term ethnogenesis is? Okay? Even though we have African ancestry and and we look at our DNA and we'll see some African ancestry, we are the same skin tone somewhat as Africans. Do we look exactly like some of them? Not really, but they say that in Africa everybody has a twin. Every black American has a twin in Africa. And that might be true, that might be the case. But the point that I'm making is our lineage is so far removed from the African tribes of today that it's like it doesn't even exist anymore. It doesn't even exist anymore. We have to dig and we have to do genealogy and we have to find out what tribe we came from and all of that stuff. And even if we do find out what tribe we came from, we still don't know nobody in that tribe. We still can't pick up the phone and call our auntie in that tribe. We don't know nobody. We are far removed from these African tribes because we had an ethnogenesis here in America. We had an ethnogenesis, family. No different than the Negritos of the Philippines. The Negritos of the Philippines had an ethnogenesis. They acknowledge that their ancestors came from Africa, but they live in the Philippines now. They're Filipino. The Virgin Islands, you have your native peoples in the Virgin Islands. Okay? They don't say that they're African, but they do acknowledge that they have African ancestry, but they don't call themselves Africans. They don't. They had an ethnogenesis. Jamaicans, black Jamaicans, they do not call themselves Africans. They call themselves Jamaicans. They identify with their nationality, not their race. They call themselves Jamaicans. They don't call themselves Africans. They don't call themselves Africans. So why do people force us to accept lineage that we don't no longer have a connection to, that we don't know nothing about, that we can't even pick up a phone and call them if we wanted to? We can't pick up a phone and call a family member in Africa even if we wanted to. So how come the disrespect come towards us? Because we want to delineate and we want to acknowledge our ancestry here on this land, family. Are we back? Okay. All right, we back on TikTok. TikTok does these little things where they make you stop. They stop you in mid live and make you do puzzles and stuff to keep you, in order for you to keep going. But that's perfectly all right, TikTok. TikTok be getting on my goddamn nerves sometimes. I ain't gonna even lie to you. I am not gonna even lie to you. TikTok be getting on my damn nerves. TikTok, all kinds of strikes and shit on my damn TikTok page for little to no reason at all. I report racist content and racist comments. You never find any problem with these content or comments, but that's a whole nother story. I'm not going to kick TikTok in a behind at the moment. Smash that like button, family. Welcome to the room. Smash that like button. Click on that subscribe button. Follow me on TikTok. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's the Rebellious Rhymer Podcast on YouTube. Let's talk about these self-sabotaging Pan-Africans, or what I like to say, scam Africans, trying to help these pale-skinned native Siberians, erase Black American culture. These people, these scam Africans are really, they want us to identify as Africans so bad that they are going out of their way to try to help non-Black people destroy our legacy here in America. And these Pan-Africans cannot lie and say that they don't have any lineage here in this country, because they do. They do. A lot of these Pan-Africans are FBA themselves. They're Black American themselves, and they have something to gain from the Pan-African. That's why this Pan-Africanism, a lot of people see it, a lot of these Pan-African groups as scammers and con artists, and that's just kind of the visual that people have on Pan-Africanism right now, especially, you know, all of this stuff that's happening with Dr. Umar. You know, I'm not trying to mention my brother in a bad faith or in a negative way. I certainly do hope that Dr. Umar get through whatever he's going through right now and get back to where he was. Never anything negative about my good brother, Dr. Umar, but to me, the things what's happening to him right now is indicative, and it's almost like a sign that Pan-Africanism is failing us. Now, my overall belief is, yes, we are never going to really, truly stomp white supremacy out into the ground without the collective of all Black people all across the planet. I do believe that. So that's why I say that, you know, I still keep my Pan-African flag, you know, in the closet and stuff like that, just in case, because, you know, we have people like Ibrahim Toure. Big ups to Ibrahim Toure. You know what I'm saying? Big ups to Ibrahim Toure for doing what he's doing out there in Burkina Faso. Okay, you know, you had people like Julius Malema. Big ups to Julius Malema. Big ups to Robert Mugabe. Okay, Robert Mugabe. You have people like that who understand what this Pan-Africanism about. They understand what it is about letting your enemy control your resources, control your gold, control your cocoa, control your coffee, control your cobalts, things like that. These people understand what it is to take back control of their own land and get the colonizers out they mix. This isn't the Berlin Conference anymore. No longer should they just be, people should be able to just come in and just divide Africa and give it to, oh, here, the Chinese, y'all get that. Oh, the Russians, here, y'all get that piece of Africa. Oh, the Irish and the British, and here, y'all get this piece of Africa. No, man, that's not what it should be. And until things change, to me, Pan-Africanism is dead. That's just my opinion. I get attacked about that a lot. I get called a coon. I get called an agent. But you know what? I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. Pan-Africanism is dead at the moment. That does not mean that there is no room to revive it. But we're going to need more than just the Ibrahim Toure family. Ibrahim Toure can't carry the goddamn torch on his back all by himself. Okay? It's going to take all of Africa as a one nation, one country, one united Africa is going to have to come together and to get these damn colonizers up off your back. It's going to take all of us. But I'm going to just be totally honest with you. I just don't see that happening no time soon, and particularly in Africa. Africa is 85-90% of the population look like me, and they pretty much run 0% of the resources on that land. That's pretty pathetic to me. You understand what I'm saying? You still got Africans searching for work visas and getting sent up to places like Dubai and India, and they getting their ass whooped on TV. Here's one clip of this African who went to go and work in India, And they end up, I don't know what the hell happened, but they tied this brother in a chair and started whooping him with a stick. Check this out. They whooping this man with a stick, family. First of all, how the hell did they even tie you up? Let a motherfucker say, okay, well, I don't like the quota. You didn't bring the right quota or whatever the problem is, so we're going to tie you in this chair and we're going to whoop you. Okay, try to tie me in this chair and see what the fuck happened. Everybody in this room going to die. Everybody in this room going to die. You ain't about to tie me up to no motherfucking chair and whoop me with a stick. That's the difference between us and them. You're not about to tie us up, family. You're not going to do that to FBI. You're not going to do that to black Americans. That's not about to happen. Okay? All this running, this constant fleeing all over the damn United States, all over Europe, all over China, all over Japan, all up in Ireland, and fleeing everywhere, working, building everything outside of their home, doing everything they can to leave, floating on inner tubes and shit to get out of their country, just to come here and to try to, compete with black Americans? Say that you're better than black Americans? Say that you're more educated than black Americans? And call us psychotists and shit? Like, are you for real? Are you serious, dog? You gonna go through all of that to come here to this country just so you can say that you're doing better than us? Man, get the fuck out of here, man. First of all, that's not true at all. Ain't no way in hell that none of y'all are doing better than the number one richest group of black people on the planet. FBA black Americans are the richest group of people on the planet, are the richest group of black people on this planet, are black Americans. You cannot come to this country talking about you're doing better than us and you're richer than us. And it's not even about competition with me personally, but that's just that's what I hear. That's what I hear when a lot of these people come here to this country. These are the type of things that they are saying. Okay? So you got these scam Africans who are helping these native Siberians erase our history in America. These scam Africans are helping these pale-skinned Siberians erase our history and our culture. And for what? Because what? You have some Pan-African group and you collecting a few dollars on it. You notice these scam Africans, they are always talking this stuff and they are never there. They are never in Africa. If you're so gung-ho on being African, and you're so, not only that, you can be gung-ho up on being African. If that's what you identify as, family, that's fine. But then you want to come and browbeat me. And you want to go browbeat Tariq Nasheed. And you want to go browbeat, I don't know, Jason Black. You want to go browbeat Professor Black Truth. You want to go browbeat these other authorities in blackness, as you will. You want to go browbeat people in the new black media, including myself, and you're not even in Africa. So why the hell you browbeating us? We know where we live. We know where we're from. We don't plan on going nowhere. And not to stay, not to go and live. No. So, fam, why you fucking with us? Leave us alone. If you want to be African, that's fine. But why browbeat us? I'll tell you why. Because a lot of these Pan-African organizations are Democratic funded. They're funded by the Democrats. Okay? These Pan-African groups. These Pan-African groups are funded by the Democrats. And one of the very first ones who started that was a brother named Martin Delaney. And you can look Martin Delaney up. Martin Delaney was responsible for, he was quote unquote the first Pan-African. Okay? Martin Delaney, I believe he was the first to be accepted into Harvard Law School, the first black man to be accepted in Harvard Law School. Look him up, family. Martin Delaney. And people were always wondering, how did he get accepted in the Harvard Law School in the 1700s when hell, they wouldn't even let the majority of us read at the time. How did he get accepted into Harvard? Well, he started some type of Pan-African movement where he was trying to get people to go back to Africa. He went to African nations trying to negotiate deals with these African chiefs, these tribal chiefs, to get some of us to come back to Africa. And I see some of these scam Africans talking about FBA, saying that, if Harriet Tubman was alive, she would have shot us in the head. If Malcolm X was alive, he wouldn't be down with this FBA thing. Our ancestors built this land here, okay? So miss me with that whole Harriet Tubman would have shot us in the head. It's all lies, it's all bullshit. Same thing with Malcolm X. Miss me with that, Malcolm X would have disowned us, wouldn't want to be down with us. Malcolm X went to Africa to advocate for black Americans, FBA. Okay? He never advocated for a back to Africa movement physically. He advocated for a mental and a spiritual back to Africa movement where acknowledging your spiritual essence that comes from Africa, which I agree with. I acknowledge and I adhere to a spiritual system, an African spiritual system myself, which is the Kemetic science. So I get that. I get that what Malcolm X said, but he never advocated for black people to physically transfer themselves back to the motherland. He never did that. He never said that. So please stop using Harriet Tubman and Malcolm X, weaponizing them against black Americans and the FBA. Stop doing that. Stop doing that, family. All right, let me ask a question to these Siberians. Why is it that black people are indigenous to every part of this globe except the Americas? Can anybody answer that? Even in the comments section. I know some of y'all are listening in the comments section. If you are in the comments section, you can answer this question. Why are black people indigenous to every other landmass on this planet except the Americas? What the hell happened different in the Americas that didn't happen everywhere else? We're indigenous. You go into the jungles of the Philippines, you see black people. You go off into certain neighborhoods in Australia, you see black people. You go off into islands you used to go off to islands like Tasmania. The folks done eliminated the whole Tasmanian race, but they were black people as well. And their whole race have been exterminated, terminated, and genocided. But you have whole tribes of black people in all of these different places in America, all throughout South America, black tribes people, all throughout Southern Asia. You got these black tribes. But for some reason, when we get to the Americas, the black people aren't the indigenous people of that land. Makes no sense, family. Makes absolutely no sense. None whatsoever. None whatsoever. Makes absolutely no sense. We are indigenous everywhere in this world except America. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Where did those black indigenous people go? Where are they? Because you look at these pictures, some of these pictures from the 1800s, and I'm not going to post a lot of pictures on this broadcast, okay, of black natives and black looking Native Americans and stuff like that, because you got a lot of the pale skinned Siberians and the scam Africans. They're going to say, oh, well, that's AI. Oh, well, look, you can see that that's Photoshop. That's not real. That's AI. That ain't real. That's AI. It can be time, date, stamp, goddamn notarized, everything. And they still not going to believe it. So I'm not going to be posting a bunch of pictures of black skinned natives because they just going to say it's AI. And so I'm not about to do that. But what I am is going to hit you with these receipts about these treaties. I'm going to hit you with these receipts about the wars that the black natives have been in, fighting against colonization. I'm going to hit you with these receipts, family. That's all that. All that matters is that black people are native and indigenous to this land. You know, because these Pan-Africans, they have no retort to what we're saying. They have no, they have no retort. They don't have nothing to debunk what we're saying. All they have is insults and browbeating and shaming tactics to try to get us to identify as Africans. And not only we don't have to do that, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We acknowledge our African heritage, our African lineage, but I'm not about to identify myself as African, and I don't know no goddamn body in Africa. I don't got no family in Africa. Why would I do that? Why in the hell would I do that? Okay? Nothing but insults and no retort and no debunking at all into anything that we say. We're just African, and you just have to just deal with it. And we're African because I say so. And that's it. That's it. No intelligent retort ever. You got a lot of these Pan-African groups who are funded by the government, Democratic funded, groups like NCOBRA. NCOBRA is backed by the Democratic Party. They push reparations for everybody, for all black people all across the planet. They push for all types of janky things that they call reparations, but they're not reparations. Like reparations should be us repatriating back to Africa. And that ain't no damn reparations. I tell you what, you cut my check, you cut our check for reparations, and a lot of us will invest in Africa. A lot of us will invest in Africa. A lot of us will probably move back to Africa. Some of us will. Some of us will use that money and help to rebuild Africa. Help black Americans get their reparations. Some of us will use that money for Africa. You know. And that's my opinion about the matter. That's my opinion about the matter. You know what I'm saying? But the insults and the shaming tactics to FBA from you scam Africans, stop it. Just stop it. Because this movement, it's just a movement of us acknowledging our lineage. Acknowledging our lineage. That's it. It's just a lineage. That's all it is. It's not a fringe group. It's not just online where it's just happening online. You know, it's a lot more vast than people think it is. Let's talk about these mounds, man. Have y'all ever seen any of these dirt mounds in America? Have you seen some of these pyramids scattered all across the world? Not just in Egypt. Man, these pyramids are all across the world, man. Built by indigenous black people. But where did these original mound builders and these original pyramid builders, where did they go? Where did the Olmecs go? Who built the Olmec heads? Where did they go? Where did all of these original mound builders go? Because, you know, it seemed like they just disappeared, right? That's what they would want you to think. That's what one would want you to think, that they just disappeared. No, they didn't disappear. You just have some of them sitting right here in front of you doing this live here from my home here in Houston, Texas. That's where we went, family. We ain't never went no goddamn where. We still here. We still here. And we was here before the goddamn Siberians. We were here before the Siberians. And we will be here after the Siberians. You understand what I'm saying? We were here before they got their blankets with smallpox and shit and alcohol and all these things. Yeah, I'm throwing little shots, but I don't give a damn, man. These people be real disrespectful to black people and disrespecting our ancestors and saying our aunties and uncles and grandmas and grandpas are crazy and they don't know what they're talking about. It ain't that goddamn many people lying, family. Why would so many people tell a lie about their indigenous heritage? Why? Why would they do that? Makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. And you got these scam Africans out there helping them do that shit. But where did the original mound builders go, family? Where did the people the Olmecs who build the Olmec heads? Where are the people who build Teotihuacan? Who build these dirt mound pyramids? Those structures are very specific. And they look very similar to the same structures in Kemet. And it is my conjecture that some of these Kemetic people, some of these Africans traveled from West Africa with through currents from the Cape Verde and from the Ivory Coast. They used certain currents and waterways and made their ways over here to the United States. Now, you got some people who are making an argument that civilization started here in the Americas and then it worked its way to Africa. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm still doing research on that. I'm not going to sit there and make that claim. It's an interesting claim. When I hear that, I do think, okay, you got these dirt mounds, pyramids, right? With little to no structural integrity or any type of scientific, dealing with angles and stuff like that. It seems like the dirt mounds are older and dilapidated here, but once you start getting over to Egypt, they start getting more precise and they start getting more advanced, technologically advanced. So, it could be something to that, but I'm not going to make that claim. I don't make the claim that Egypt is in America. I don't, unless I see it with my own two eyes. I don't make that claim. But there are dirt mounds. There are dirt mounds here that clearly were pyramids. Okay? They're all over the place. Tennessee, they're all over the place. These dirt mounds are all over the place. You got pyramids all over the place. Where did these pyramid builders go, though? That's the question. Where are they? If we never exist, if black people were not indigenous to those lands, to these Americas, then who the hell built those dirt mounds and those pyramids? Who built those dirt mounds and those pyramids? Because you notice, once these people disappeared, these Olmecs and these other quote-unquote black tribal people, once they left, all the pyramid building and the dirt mound building stopped, family. It stopped. So I do believe that our ancestral lineage leads back to them. And maybe we lost the knowledge on how to build pyramids and stuff like that. And we had an ethnogenesis and pretty much became a totally different group. We became black Americans. But where did these people go? Where did these people go? I think that they ain't never go nowhere. I think that they are right here. I think that you're looking at them. You're looking at the original mound builders. You're looking at the original pyramid builders. Okay? So don't let no pale-skinned Siberian tell you that you have no lineage here in the United States, in the Americas, on this landmass, because there's too much evidence that suggests otherwise. There's too much evidence to suggest otherwise. Y'all smash the like buttons. Please smash the like buttons. Share this program. Share this podcast. Let me give a shout out to this. There's some, let's see, VO Lance Interrupters Project. Riding with the Boss. What's going on? Riding with the Boss. Spencer Wilker. Spencer Wilker. What's going on? Coco, what's going on, Coco? I just like to acknowledge the people who step into my brother, Storyman 1960. What's going on? My brother be spitting fire, man. Y'all check out his page as well. Storyman be going in. Storyman be going in, man, on these peoples. Don't try to deflect and try to steal hip hop or try to infiltrate black culture, because Story Man gonna get in that ass. You hear what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying? Gravy 7832, what's going on? Struggling in Liber. All right. All my brothers and sisters in here. I am T-Gon. What's going on, brother? You know, I be checking out your stuff quite a bit. So yeah, man, just, you know, I appreciate everybody joining me on this podcast. You know, I appreciate the gifts, the hearts and everything. So yeah, family, let's talk about this Racial Integrity Act. Have y'all ever heard of that? Have y'all ever heard of the Racial Integrity Act of 1924? Let's talk about it, because this correlates with the black Native Americans of today. This correlates with that. So the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, it was drafted by an evil man named Walter Plecker. For those who don't know who Walter Plecker was, he was a eugenicist and is some type of a scientist. He also drafted up this Racial Integrity Act. And what this Racial Integrity Act did was it implemented the one drop rule, first of all. So if you're running around the Americas in 1924, in 1923, and you're mixed and you're calling yourself a mulatto, that's not going to fly, because with this one drop rule in Virginia, you will be classified as a Negro, not mixed. You'll be classified as Negro. You'll be delegated to living amongst the Negroes. You will not be able to amalgamate yourself into white society. Okay, so that's what this Racial Integrity Act of 1924 has done. But not only that, this is the most important part about this Racial Integrity Act of 1924, drafted by Walter, the evil bastard Plecker, right? Walter Plecker also used this 1924 Racial Integrity Act to declassify the black Native Americans, okay? So these black Native Americans, before they've been kicked out of their tribes, they've been declassified as black Native Americans. They've been declassified as Native Americans, and they've been reclassified as Negroes or coloreds. So that's another way of erasing our black indigenous history in this country. Part of that was due to people like Walter Plecker, who erased our indigenous connection to the tribes and to the land and classified us as Negro, stripping us of our Native American heritage, okay? That's what this Racial Integrity Act did. Okay, it stripped us of our heritage. So you had a lot of us, family, thousands upon thousands of black tribe members who've been declassified as Native Americans and reclassified as Negro or colored. So this is why I believe that when my grandma and my great grandma and people on my father's side, and all these stories about these Native Americans, there's a reason why I believe them. I believe them because a lot of us were considered black natives or Native Americans until we've been declassified with the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. Walter Plecker did a doozy. There was a doozy on us. Okay, so these 5 civilized tribes were able to use that 1924 Racial Integrity Act along with their personal things that they written in their treaty to expel us from the tribes, family. To expel us from the tribes. So that's what I didn't see your invite there. Maybe I'll join a little bit later. But that's what happened with these declassification of the black man and black woman in these tribes. They've been reclassified as Negro or colored. So these 5 civilized tribes and these 5 pale-skinned chiefs used this law to further expel us from these tribes. And not only did they expel us from these tribes, now today they're trying to expel us from the history, period. And we're not going to let that go down. We are not going to let that go down. That's why I entitled this live, When Wabos Strike Back. Because we are wabos and we are striking back. Your bullshit. Okay? Excuse my language. Peace and power, everybody. And remember, the revolution starts with you. This has been another episode of the Rebellious Rhymer Podcast. All right? Peace. Hotel.